gang. I was in the heart of it, where it all happened, in the dark of it. I'm talking all the graphic. Do I ever miss a block? Man, they all asses. I think it's heaven at the top till it all crashes. I was functioning with the rep cause I was one of them. Look, every soldier around kept a gun on them. Everything looking for them, running up on them. I got some pictures in my mind, I could never post them. It was explosive every day, we made a show of it. Tried to get rich and died trying, had to go for it. A generation off the killer made you know of it. But it's hard to be proud when you're grown from it. The clear wrong of it seemed right then. A fraternity, your brother stay fighting for respect and a disrespectful environment. Damn, the danger in the trenches was exciting. Life is the kill, at least that's how we move. And your word went nil, had to show and prove. And the stripes we approved was a stepping stool. The network grew, so did the investment grew. I was in the heart of it, where it all happened, in the dark of it. I'm talking all the graphic. Do I ever miss a block? Man, they all asses. I think it's heaven at the top till it all crashes. Man, I'm a real joint.
This is Gangsta-Gangsta on Kansas. And I am your host, Askari Abdul Mutakam, and I'm here with my co-host,
Mr. Michael Hall,
better known as Baby Duck from Westside H-Right Gangsta Crip. You want to shout out any other organization, sir? You've been getting ordered by the general to give out some shout outs?
Man, you starting early in the morning, huh? All right, but yeah, I do want to give a shout out to Affiliate and Offender Recovery Program. The CEO is Mr. Bernard Cooper, a good friend of mine, better known to y'all as Baby Spike, and we doing great things in the community.
All right, yeah, we got to get Baby Spike on, man, so we can holler, man, because you know, while this is not a solely H-Right Gangster platform, right? There's a lot of H-Right Gangster, history going on here, man. You know, this is where we from and all this, and we got a guest hosting here today, Mr. Kenny Bell. His screen will say Kenny Eugene, so you can all y'all can just call him Eugene.
What's up, Kenny? How you doing today, bro?
I like going by Kenny, man. That's a cute name to have right there, man. It ring a bell.
Did you just say cute?
Yeah, I did say that.
Hey, who is Kenny better known as? What is Kenny better known as?
Just Ken Bell, man. That's it.
That's Ken Bell. He's also known as, sometimes known as, better known as,
sometimes known as, and better known as in CDC. That's Tricky B from Denver Lanes.
Tricky B from Denver Lanes.
All right, let's get it out there then. Let's get it out there.
Okay.
I figure since he exposed you, I jump on your bandwagon, and I ain't gonna jump on his innocence.
Oh yeah, I need all the help I can get when I'm messing with Askari.
Right. It's important that our viewership know, hey man, you know that we from there, right? We a part of the community, man. We're not some cats that's hollering at you from some other sphere, right? You know, we may be educated, we may have trying to level up ourselves, but we may develop business plans and strategies and all those kinds of things. But we came from the same exact places y'all come from, which means that if we did it, y'all can do it, right? So we do want our people to know, man, who we are.
Right.
But Baby Duck is famous. I don't know if I told you, Kenny, but I was talking to somebody in the UK, and she was watching our podcast. And she's like, I love it when Baby Duck goes gangsta. I started cracking up. I can't do her accent any justice because it was an authentic English accent. But she was like, I love it when Baby Duck goes gangsta. That's gangsta, Baby Duck. Okay, so today what we want to do, inshallah ta'ala, is talk about mental health, right? We're going to be talking about mental health and what the aspects of mental health that we're going to actually go through 4 phases, right? We're going to be talking about what happens with us when we're children before we enter into the gang lifestyle, what happens to us as we are gang members, what happens to us when we go to prison, and what happens to us upon release. With respect to mental health, the presence or the absence of it. Who wants to begin with their little presentation? I don't know. It's not a presentation. We're having a conversation. So who wants to talk? Who wants to speak first? Because I'll speak forever.
I think a good place to start is just from the root of it, where it doesn't get the attention that it needs, especially when you're a child you're growing up, a teacher tells you that you're special, and the other kids criticize you, and they give you names like your ADD, um, or you have to ride this bus, or anything that has a negative cognition towards somebody having a mental illness. Like you you don't get to get accepted by your peers. I mean, of course, at home you get loved and you get cared for, and in a sense, you low key get sheltered because your parents and your loved ones are trying to protect you towards all of these negative little frames that get put around mental health. But the stigma that surrounds it just from a child going up, and this is just my opinion, but the negative stigma that surrounds it as a child, you grow up knowing that you're not like everybody else and that I'm different, and people actually treat you different. And although children are innocent at school, a child may want to bag on you, you know, because they don't have problems like you. And even though you may not be able to communicate as well as other children, you still can interpret things just like other children. So your perception of what's going on around you is way more heightened than what comes out of you because you don't have the same mental capacity as everybody else. So from a child having mental health issues and then growing up in an underserved community or black community or Hispanic community, whatever it is, when you finally do start getting older, and whether you're a tough guy or not, it leads into, for one, you already came into a situation as a child being treated different, picked on, and I noticed because I didn't went to school with him. I didn't had special ed or mental health people in my own household, so I know what happens as far as them getting taken advantage of. And when I say taking advantage of, it's all kind of things, but specifically in our field, gangs. Because once you go through being feeling left out, feeling like no one accepts me, feeling like I'm different, and then you finally do find yourself at a school, and people do see that you kind of like, I have a I don't care attitude. I'm willing to do whatever I have to do to get accepted, and you find yourself belonging to a gang now. You find yourself belonging to a gang, and everybody that's in the gang, they love you because we love people who don't care. We love people who don't think twice about doing something, or if we say, "Hey, go do this," and they go do it.
Okay,
And
let's unpack some of that. Let's unpack some of that.
Okay.
So one of the things that happens with like mental health is not about mental illness, right? And I think sometimes we do confuse those two things, right? Mental health is about just it's the same thing as going to a dentist, right? You know, we all have mentality, right? We all have brains, and brain health is some of it is physical, but other parts of it is not. And when we're young, we don't learn how to deal with trauma correctly. And one of the problems is what like Kenny was alluding to, like in school, sometimes these teachers who are placed in our neighborhoods are not really familiar with who we are. So you have teachers coming in, and then they'll start seeing your behavior, and they'll start labeling you special, right? And then start saying that there's something wrong with you. You got to go and go to, like you said, the special ed class or something like that. Or they wanted to excuse me, they want to introduce you to the drug world by giving you Ritalin and all those other drugs that they give many black and brown children when they're in these schools, when they're behaving in particular ways, because they have no idea that there's secondary trauma going on, or primary trauma, you might say. There's trauma going on sometimes outside just the classroom. These children are acting up because there's this stuff going on in their houses, is going on in their communities, and people don't know about that. And so that's one aspect that we actually have to deal with, is that not only is there real trauma that's going on in people's households, particularly in households where people later become gang members, but But on top of that, when they go to these schools and they start misbehaving, or they start, the teachers see them, they don't see them correctly. They don't see them for who they actually are. They see them as you're a problem. What do you say about that?
Yeah, you make a good point. And when we talk about trauma, there are a lot of different types of trauma, because you have mental trauma, you have emotional trauma, and you got physical trauma. And I think about, I used to play a lot of sports when I was young, and I used to play like on the cement. We used to play tackle football on the cement, and we used to tackle on the cement. We used to go head to head with each other without equipment on. So just think about the trauma that was doing to us when you go head to head with somebody, or and you hit your head. That's trauma. And we have learned later on in life about the CTE, how that affected the football players and stuff like that. So some of us probably have already experienced things like that. I remember there was a guy that I was locked up with, and he talked about that. He was trying to get back on his case because he felt that he was affected by that. Because when he was young and he was playing football, he told me he had got about 7 concussions. So just think, he had 7 concussions when he was young. Just think how that affected him. And then other trauma, where for me, even sometimes getting whoopings, that played a big impact on me. I used to be so mad about that, and I felt it was nothing that I could do. I just used to hold that stuff in. Just walking out on the block, and you seeing guys getting shot at. And I remember when I was young, a couple of the older guys that stayed on our block, they had got shot up, but I was real close to these guys. These guys were like family members. They used to come over our house and stuff like that, but I didn't even know how to process that stuff back then. Right. And it weighed on me. So I just look at like, for us, the Black and brown community, being exposed to a lot of that stuff when we're young and not knowing how to process it, never talking about it, it has done real damage to us.
Right. What were you trying to say, Kenny?
Well, this is going so many ways, because he just brought up like an excellent point, like just beyond excellent point. But at the same time, you brought up one too, so I'm gonna try to touch on both of them. So, for one, touching on what Michael said, when a child has mental issues and a parent doesn't even know how to approach those mental issues, that's a big error right there alone. I mean, I had two autistic relatives that grew up in my house, that got they butt whooped all the time, and it wasn't because they was bad. It wasn't because they didn't comprehend, and it wasn't because they didn't know how to articulate themselves. When you have ADD, and I'm just using that particular mental setback, you move around all the time. I sometimes I think I have it because I can't be still. I have to fidget with something. I have to be writing, and I don't do good at sit down activities. So my learning style might be a style where I need to physically be involved in things, but a parent has no idea of knowing this because no one ever told them. Even at school, because I'm in a classroom with 25 other kids, and I'm not sitting still, and I can't I have to do something. I have to be talking, I have to be writing, and now they want to set up an IEP meeting, because they he doesn't belong in the class with the rest of the kids. When in all actuality, the learning style that I particularly need is the kind of learning style where I can sit up and physically get engaged. And the schools that we go to in our community, they don't offer more than one style of learning. They offer one style of learning, which is you sit at a desk, listen to a teacher talk, and you go to page 15 and you do the assignment on page 20. But if I already have a attention deficit disorder, I can't sit down and learn that way. And just like cars evolve, just like houses evolve, just like the way we do businesses evolve. Why the education process for that particular community, and just for all children around us, but just for that particular community, it hasn't evolved. It hasn't evolved at all. So in a sense, they still get left behind. And then the second part, that was kind of addressing what you said, Scary, but to the second part, with Michael saying, about, just getting your butt whooped at home, it produces trauma for one, but for two, it's because some parents just do not know how to approach those particular mental issues. That's how I feel about it.
Well, let's talk about that for a second too, like, because there'll probably be some people who are listening to this, very very likely not people who come from our community, but there'll be people who listen to this and they may have been spanked when they were children, and they're like, wait a minute, what do you mean I was spanked as a child? I wasn't traumatized. But the truth of the matter is that in the Black community, and I have to imagine the same thing is true in the Chicano Latino community, is that parents go overboard with this so-called whoopings. We call them whoopings and spankings, but I mean, this is seriously abuse. We're not talking about like we're often, and it's the vestiges. I know in the Black community, vestiges from slavery, but I mean, we are seriously. I mean, like, we are abused. We're not like just beat. It's not like you do something. I mean, I used to get stripped naked, right? And my father would whoop me with an ironing cord, man. Right. Back in the day, and Kenny, I don't know if you old enough to remember this, but I know Michael is. They used to have the irons used to have cloth around them, right? So my father cut the cloth off, cut the ironing cord, the cord off the iron with the cloth around it, and that's his whooping instrument. And he used to whoop us so much that the cloth had started to come out, and the wire was there, and he would still use it. So we would end up with whelps and open wounds on our bodies when my father was whooping on us. I mean, that's abuse. I mean, nobody in their right mind can say that that's the way you're supposed to be disciplining a child. Right. And so
because some that I had learned, and it talked about that a child is going to eventually grow up to be a grown person. So you're not going to discipline a grown person like that. So why would you discipline a child like that? You understand what I'm saying? Because this child is going to eventually be a grown person. So why are you whooping a child? Why are you hitting this child? But I understand, like you said, where it come from, and that's a part of our culture. And our parents believe they was doing the right thing when they was doing that stuff. Right. But it had an effect on us, because I know it had an effect on me.
I tell people, I was in my 30s before I healed from the trauma that I experienced in my house. I was in my late 30s before I actually, before I got sat down inside myself and did some work to heal from, because I kept reliving that particular issue over again. This is why my issue with authority, and I don't know if I'm completely healed about that, but my issue with authority, like overstepping bounds, why I get so aggressive about that is it points back to the fact that I was helpless as a child in the face of authority. I was just used.
Right. It's like it's like what you have to say don't matter, and it destroys trust between the parent and the child, because if something happened, if you do make a mistake, you're not gonna want to tell your parent, because you're looking at it like, I'm gonna get a whooping. So now now I'm gonna start lying to you. Instead of feeling that I can tell you I made this mistake, I did this, and you're gonna help me through it. Where I ain't afraid to tell you this. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
Yeah. Also, I mean, looking at it from our perspective, I mean, reverse the role to someone that does have mental issues, and they're constantly getting, they tail popped on because of who they are. I made a decision to jump out the window and go, use my grandparents' car while they were asleep, or I made a decision to not do the dishes. But somebody who has mental health issues, where it's just like, I literally forgot that you told me to do the dishes. I literally forgot you go fold up those clothes because I was in here playing with my Game Boy, and You know, I'm a forgetful person. But the simple fact that I was disciplined just for being me, and I'm not saying me myself, but just someone with mental health issues, that right there is where it's the unfair practice came in at, because you know, one parent may have been whooped while they was a child, and that parent was whooped when they was a child. So it's really the only style of discipline that the parent knows how to go to. They don't know other resources that's outside of, and then everything is supposed to be all good. So I mean, the thing that we're highlighting right here is that when somebody does have mental health issues, for one, it's a lot more understanding towards mental health issues than it was when you know, we were growing up. And I'm younger than you guys, so it was probably, you guys probably seen a little bit more worse than what I've seen. But I've just seen it.
I mean, it really wasn't even talked about at all when I was growing up about mental health. You know, excuse the word, but if you was retarded, then that's what they would say, that you're retarded. It wasn't about no mental health, and like everybody wasn't. You know, you had to be just really gone for you to be placed in that category of being retarded. Other than that, if you was just doing crazy stuff, you was bad. It wasn't considered mental health. It was like, you're bad and you need a whooping. You know what I'm saying?
And look, Michael, wow, it's crazy how you saying that, because it's kids that I know for a fact, man. I had personal family members, man, with that just, you know, they have challenging moments mentally, that they like to fight. They like to fight because it's their way of expressing all of this. People don't understand me, so I got to make them understand me. And I mean, Mike Tyson is a great example to use for this kind of trauma right here. Like, I'm gonna make you feel the beast that's inside of me, because there's no other way for me to be expressive.
To communicate,
and listen, if everyone around me has expressed violence to me, what do you think I'm going to express?
Violence.
You get what I'm saying? I'm going to do the same thing when I'm at home and I forget to do a chore because my mind just is forgetful, and I get popped on the butt for. And you just seen the type of popping that Ascori just was talking about. And nobody has been exempt from those style whoopings. Nobody has been exempt, whether you have mental issues or not. Nobody's been exempt from getting hit with all kind of stuff: belts, heels, switches, wires, all that. And you can't get mad when this person goes to express that same type of anger towards everyone else. You can't get mad. It's sad when someone hasn't formed the correlation saying this happened to him and therefore this is what to go do. That's sad.
He's expressing himself, right?
Exactly.
And trauma is cumulative, right? Trauma is cumulative. It piles on top of each other. It piles on top of, and children have no ability to understand or process, like Michael was talking about, process what they're going through, right? We have these children, like, you know, and it's not just things that happen at home. Like, we're talking about the community, you know, like there's an interview that I really want to do. And I'm not going to talk about who it is, but I really want to do this particular interview because of the impact it had on me. This particular murder, the impact that this murder had on me as a child growing up in Detroit Gangster. I want to talk to this person about that, and because I want to, you know, bring that particular thing in and talk about the fact that other people. I remember, you know, when I was young, I remember in the 80s that we literally kind of, like, you know, we accepted the fact that we might just die walking down the street. It was like acceptable. It wasn't a desired result, but it was like an accepted fact. Like, you know, it was like the trauma was so great that we lived through a time like, you know, hey, we live in a place where you could just walk down the street and be murdered, right? Period. No matter what age you are, you know, as long as you were a teenager, you know, you got a good chance of walking down the street or walking to, like we used to talk about, like you go to certain malls, you know, just going to a mall, going anywhere in LA in the 80s was dangerous, because if other cats found you, right, there is going to be some drama, and that drama could end in you being murdered and or maimed, hurt, or, you know, beat down. And it was a known fact, and it was something that was all children had to process. Whether you banged or not, you had to process that. That's cumulative. That stuff adds up. And remember the whirly bird, right? We called it, I mean, that's what we called it back then, the whirly bird. But you know, the helicopters, right? When LAPD just used to swarm our neighborhoods with these helicopters. So every night you hear gunshots and you hear helicopters. Right? You hear helicopters flying over your, like you're in a war zone. You can't tell me that a little child processing that doesn't, you know, that doesn't add up. And he's not understanding it. It's just his environment, but it adds up.
And especially when, you know, your parents or the authority figures are not talking to you about it, are not explaining these things to you, you know, are not helping you to process this stuff. So now you're left to process it on your own. You're left to figure this stuff out on your own. And a lot of times, that's why a lot of us grow up believing that our parents don't understand us. You know, we be feeling like, well, you know, my parents don't understand me. You know, I'm getting a whipping. I didn't mean to do this. Or, you know, so these things are real, man. These things, it had a big effect on me when I was growing up.
Right, and hey, Michael, in that story, and we speaking of one, we speaking of one type of abuse. So, when y'all see me looking down, I was just doing a research on Google because I didn't want to misspeak. But I'm speaking about things that I witnessed in my own family, and just know about with other people outside of my own family. So we just talked about the physical abusive part of it. The mental abuse, which is something that you can't evade from because people who are ignorant to special needs, they just don't know how to approach them. So you got physical and mental abuse, but now, and the physical abuse is the beating, but now I want to go into that community as well. They're twice as likely to be sexually abused more than anyone else. And the reason why is because they're seen more so as vulnerable toward the person that's assaulting them. So I just wrote down a quick note to share with you guys. So 50% of the women that have mental health issues, 50% of those women are sexually abused. 25% of those men are sexually abused, and it's more than twice as likely to happen while they're children. And it's crazy because mental health children are twice as likely to report that someone touched them than someone who doesn't have mental issues. However, even though they say something about it, it's twice as likely to get ignored as well. Because people can always say, well, you know, they're tripping and they don't know what was going on, or he's just saying that, and it, you know, can go to being unbelieved. Period. So that community is exposed to, you know, tons of vulnerabilities beyond the scope of not being understood at school, beyond the scope of getting spanked at home, beyond the scope of just feeling different. And then you have someone with mental health issues going through with something that we all go through, which is puberty, understanding my body, understanding I'm attracted to the other sex, this, that, and the other. So it leaves a community open to a world of vulnerabilities that, you know, the people, if you're not careful, the people around them end up taking advantage of them. There's no way we can bringing that up.
And we have a problem in our community, the Black community, because you know how we would always say, excuse me, child molestation. Oh, it's a white thing, man. White men, them perverts, white perverts, and all that. Child molestation happens rampantly in all communities because it's a human thing, right? That kind of predatory, perverted mentality exists in humanity. And we are a part of humanity as much as anyone else. So these things do happen in the Black community. We just have a way of ignoring it and shutting it down. And you know, this is why Little Football was very bold and brave to come out and talk about, hey, look, you know, man, as a kid, I was molested. Now I've talked to a whole bunch of cats, man, you know, that will tell you the same thing, right? In the private moments. You're not necessarily going to come on a podcast and say, hey, you know, this happened to me. But there are a lot of cats, man, and I'm talking about killers, man, that this stuff didn't happen to. Because you're not a killer when you're born. You're not an 8-year-old killer, you know. You become that dude later on, right?
Right.
And oftentimes the trauma that you've experienced will help inform what kind of dude you become later on. And people are taking advantage of children when they're young. They are defenseless. That's why it's so insidious. They are defenseless, and this does happen in our community. But we have to, as a community, have to get better about when children come to us, or feel like Michael was talking about. They need to feel safe to come to us and say, "Hey, look, Uncle such and such is touching me, man. What was somebody's doing some wrong to me." We don't have that kind of barrier yet. We don't have that kind of trust yet built up in our community because we blame the children. We got words. We literally got words for our little girls. When a man is attracted to our little girl, we call her fast.
I was just gonna say now,
switching, right? She got hips, she got female body parts. She's switching. I mean, she moves like a girl, and we got a name for it. Oh, that's switching.
Right.
8 years old.
Now,
pervert is attracted to her.
You just brought up a lot of great points. I want to touch on all of them too. So you can't get away from you can't get away from speaking up on the predatory actions of adults. And I really don't want to go deep in the frame of adults. I really want to stick in that frame of 13 and 21. I just want to talk about that frame. I really don't want to go beyond that scope, so just bear with me. Between 13, when the male starts puberty, and 21, a guy is at like his sexual peak because he going crazy with realizing what sex is. So you have these kids that have been sheltered at home, and I'm talking about young teenage boys who they haven't been able to go out and explore their sexuality because they only get to go to school and come back home, and they have no life outside of that. And there's girls that they like at school, and it's like, well, I don't even know how to talk to girls. And then you have, a group of friends or one friend that you may know, well, he getting it, and he telling you that he getting it. You know what I'm saying? And now you're at home, and all the adults went out, and you're stuck in the house with your sister or your cousin Stacy. They dropped all the kids off right here. Now you just left a ton of kids at home, and most of them are going through puberty. What do you think that you just created? Say something to me, Michael. What do you think you just created? I don't want both of you speaking at the time. I'm gonna talk to them. Tell me if I'm wrong. You just left boys and girls at home in the house alone. What do you think you just created?
Oh yeah,
come on.
A lot of experimenting is about to happen.
So look, now hold that thought. Hold that thought right there. Now you just created some kissing cousins, and look, we not about to have a whole like ancestral conversation right here. I'm just bringing some facts right here. So you just dropped all these kids off. All of them not of age because they range in age groups of between 13 and 21. And I've been a designated babysitter before at 14 years old. And I'm babysitting 8, 9, 11, 13-year-olds, and we all in the house just having fun, making tents in the living room, wrestling, doing whatever it is that we do. Now, in my household, it was more appropriate. It was just more appropriated because our grandma just didn't play that. But I done talked to like so many women, like a lot of women who done told me about things that happened to them when they was kids, and it happened in this time frame, which is why I'm bringing up this age group. It happened in this time frame. So the older cousin or the older uncle sees that she's going through the development stages. And I really don't want to evade mental health while we're talking about this. So we not going to evade that this is where this conversation started at. So you have the young lady going through her developmental stages, and the story. I told you I want to touch on everything you said. So we call it fast. And listen, I'm not going to give a fast ass little girl an excuse to be fast. Because you got little girls who by nature, this is how they body develop, this is how they walk, and they're just attractive. And they should be attracted to little boys just like little boys are going to be attracted to them. But then you have, I said the age group 13 to 21. So you got this 21-year-old or 19-year-old or 18-year-old or maybe even 17-year-old who he's sheltered at home and he hasn't gotten away. And now he has that in his face. And we do have the fast little girl. And,
So
and,
let me give a little push.
Hold on the story. Let me say this last part. Then I want you to talk. The reason why you can call her fast is because she sit on guys' laps. The reason why you can't call her fast because she don't just sit on guys' laps. She want to sit there and move and play. And every time she sees a guy, she runs straight to him, whether he a stranger or not. We can call her fast because she had a fast mama. Her mama is in the streets, or she got a fast cousin that she look up to. So you cannot, absolutely, you cannot just use the simple fact that we label that as being fast, that her little ass is not being fast. The same way that the predator is looking out for that type of activity. So let's just not evade those things. That's all I'm saying.
All right, so let me push back a little bit, right? So the girls that you're talking about who are behaving in this particular way, right? They would have had a childhood as well, right? They would have grown up in the community as well. They would have been around people as well. So my sister would never sat on no stranger's lap because my father would have broke her jaw if she did,
okay.
Right? She wouldn't have ran around, doing any of those things you're talking about, right? So I'm saying that a girl who's doing this, right, clearly would have grown up in a household where that was either acceptable or accepted from her because she keeps doing it, right? So I don't know that we can necessarily blame her for having parenting or community parenting that allowed her to continue to do this without that kind of stigma and or correction, right?
Right.
And the truth of the matter is this: is that there are women and little girls who are attractive, and they learn to use their body and they learn to use their sexuality against men. That in and of itself is something that needs to be recognized, but it cannot be used to say, oh, Uncle blah 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 is taking care of his niece who got some big old jugs, a nice round booty that's shaking, and she's walking around in her pajamas with no panties on, but so she's in her house and he sees the shake of her behind, so he decides he's gonna take her in the back room and do something crazy with her. Then the mama gonna come home and say, your little fast ass, enticed my brother.
Right? Yeah, that's not right. That's not right at all. No level.
Because you run around here with no panties on, you ain't got no bra on, you 16 years old, and you jiggling all over the place. What you think he posted? That's wrong on every single level, because she's still a young girl who's trying to find herself. We're not even fully developed half the time at 30 years old. We ain't mentally developed. She's still trying to find out who she is as a human being. And she's gonna make some really bad mistakes because her body's inviting her to hey, wiggle, jiggle, and all that kind of thing. But we can't allow monsters to get past this because the little girls are being little girls.
Right. So I had told you in the beginning, like, I didn't want to evade from the mental health aspect from this right here. So stick with me. So the children who are experiencing mental health and just totally on the lines of what you just said, going through puberty, developing, going through, being attracted to people, other people being attracted to you. When you start learning that your body can be used as a tool to get accepted, and I'm not getting accepted in no other areas of life, now this tool then became my primary, tool of acceptance. So I know how to get a guy's attention now. I know how to fit in. I know how to look better because what I was doing wasn't working for me. So we just sticking to the mental health aspect of somebody who's been outcast at home from whoopings, who's been outcast from peers and friends at home, and who certain family members is like, I know we going to the mall, but we don't want to take him or her because now we got to watch them. So now when they do, get a little older, and they learn that these are tools, what else are they evading to besides that? And I can say this because I done been on Figueroa, so I know what I know the community that's taken advantage of. You brought up something else which I had wrote down, which is and I don't want to get too far away. I just don't want to stick on this subject, but you brought up the drugs.
No. You have to understand that sexual abuse is trauma. Trauma leads to
Okay.
We're all in the same thing. Yeah.
Okay.
And the other part of it that he was talking about uh, feeling not accepted and realizing now that their body can have them being accepted. Their body can have them, being lust on or whatever. They can use their body now, and
Right.
that's a very important factor that you have brought up. And all of that goes to the mental health because it goes to like insecurities and not feeling accepted and and at a young age people need to be able to process this stuff. Somebody need to be able to talk to people about that when you're feeling rejected, when you're feeling like you're not accepted,
Right.
and that's where the parent come in.
No, absolutely, and I mean, and then keep in mind, because I've been one of these kids that was like young, skinny. Hey, I seen the guys that was playing football. They a little bit more beefier than me, a whole lot more beefier than me. And it's the same thing for it's the same thing for little girls. They looking at the other little girls who have developed a little faster than they have, and they just like their confidence is down here. Their confidence is down here because they haven't started that yet, and they haven't got the attention, this, that, and the other. So when someone, even a regular, ordinary person, versus a mental health person, I still think that the mental process is the same, but it matter over here a little bit more because now that I've went through puberty and I have a little bit body and my hair a little bit longer and I can wear tighter jeans and this, that, and the other, now they feel my confidence is up. I get attention now. Oh my God, I get attention. They're looking at me. They're asking me for my phone number. Like, you know what I'm saying? And so I can speak about this because I have daughters and I didn't have, I didn't have my own little girl tell me like, yeah, Dad, the boys at school don't like me because I don't have what the other little girls have, and I can say all I want, like, well, you're a beautiful lady, and don't worry about it. That's going to come when it comes, and this, that, and the other. Looking at her now,
Bill, let me make one quick point. But as a kid, somebody might look at that young lady as being fast, or she, like she's bad, or this or that. But they don't understand the mental health aspect of it, that she might be insecure. She might be, feel that she's not accepted. So this is why she's acting out this way. But until people talk to this kid and ask them, well, why are you doing this? And try to get to the root of that, they would never know that.
Yeah, I feel like we should have had a lady on this podcast because I promise you.
When we got stuck, I felt the same way. I was like, man, we need a woman on it.
I really don't want to speak. It's just the thing. Like I really don't want to speak for a woman. I mean, I've talked to many women, so I'm basing everything I'm saying on conversations I had with women. But I'm still not a woman, and I don't consider myself a woman expert. But because they could speak about this like 10 times heavier and way more in detail. So this is gonna say this is really from the male perspective, but it comes from experience of talking to a lot of women. So that's what I'm basing.
We are dudes, right? And things that we ignore because culturally it's not cool to talk about what we're about to talk about in a moment. And that is that we as males are over-sexualized too early, and that actually leads to trauma, right? You start getting your dick, but you start, having sex and laying down with women too early, before you're mentally able to process, excuse me, all the feelings that go along with that, you start to, excuse me, you start to look at women in a different way. And that's really true of gang culture, right? In gang culture, women initially, at least in our time, that's what they were. They were like play toys, right? Like the homegirls were play toys, right? It's changed now. You're like homegirls are turned up now, but like back then, I mean, they were sexual items, right? And that comes from when you're too young, you 10, 11 years old, sticking your tallywhack in something, right? You have no ability to process the emotions of that. So now you just like, oh, it's just, this is what it is. And you start to link to that over and over and over again. So when you grow older, now you're objectifying women, and women are not, you don't have real mature feelings about women until you get past that phase. But
bottom line, you don't even respect women. You don't have no respect for them.
And by that time, you done had a bunch of kids, though. By the time you learn to pick a woman, you got 1,000 kids by 1,000 different women.
Yeah. But I mean, you got to still keep in mind. You got to keep in mind. I mean, for one, back then, you would have some parents that when something came on TV, that cover your eyes up, or put something over your head and don't look at this scene right here. But you still peeking a little bit. You know what I mean? You'll have you hearing sex in the house in the middle of the night. You going to school and you seeing things that are sexualized at school. So it's like when a young boy, I learned this in psychology. So a young boy will get exposed to pornography, right? Sometimes a young girl too get exposed to pornography. And once they get exposed to pornography, that right there just shapes the mind a whole nother different way. So when you say that, what did you say, Ascari? That we got over-sexualized?
Right.
Yeah, and so a lot of markets around us, we as teenagers or as kids was for sure their target market. It was without a doubt we was their target market. We was who they was marketing. Just showing whatever they was showing. It made it very attractive to us. Period. But we are people who are capable of digesting that in a normalized way. I would love to know how somebody who's facing mental challenges, if they faced it the same exact way that we faced it, or was it just like, oh, I finally found where I belong. You get what I'm saying?
Kenny, I think you when you're talking, I think you're kind of missing the point here. Like what I'm saying about mental health is that we all have mental health challenges, not just people with special needs. Like every single one of us experience things in our lives that we have not dealt with, and that is mental health, right? So
okay.
All of us. Every
all
single
of us.
Yeah. I was in the heart of it, man. I was in the heart of it, where it all happened, in the dark of it. I'm talking on the graphic. Do I ever miss a block? Man, they all answer. I think it's heaven at the top till it all crashed. I was functioning with the rep cause I was one of them. Look, every soldier around kept a gun on them. Everything looking for them, running up on them. I got some pictures in my mind, I could never post them. It was explosive every day, we made a show of it.